Do you have the confidence to attempt the difficult? This is a question we're going to examine, and we're going to think about it in the context of entrepreneurial behavior, what it means to be confident, the impact of that on the success of entrepreneurs, as well as assessing your own personal confidence and discussing some traps that we sometimes fall into. So we're going to begin our path on the third leg of the opportunity analysis canvas as we look at entrepreneurial behaviors. And within entrepreneurial behaviors, we want to recognize that we can have a strong entrepreneurial mindset. Our entrepreneurial motivation may be high, but that we need to translate that into entrepreneurial behavior to reap those rewards. And what that means, as we begin to deconstruct the term, is that we're going to talk about confidence, we're going to talk about risk, and then we're going to discuss interpersonal skills and later social capital and the roles they play in new venturing. So there are many statistics out there on the failure rates of startups. You may hear that 10% of new companies survive, or 10% of all new products succeed. Perhaps it's an 18 or even 20% success rate for repeat entrepreneurs. And for veterans that have started companies and have raised venture capital in the past, they may achieve a success rate as high as 30% when they go on and start new ventures. And while the statistics are debatable, we do recognize and universally agree that in a startup, nothing is going to happen if the entrepreneurs don't make an attempt to make it happen. And so when we look at confidence, it's the belief in oneself or one's powers of abilities. And in this context, we're looking at self-confidence, self-reliance, and assurance as other perspectives for this confidence. Confidence and self-efficacy, while two sides of the same coin, are differentiated in self-efficacy of looking at the likelihood of an individual activity, whereas self-confidence is a bit of a broader measure, and it's thinking about how you broadly perform in different dimensions and your level of satisfaction or expectancy in being able to do so. And while we're aware of self-confidence as a concept, we might not be as familiar with some of the traps that some of us sometimes fall into. Some of these may be subtle, things like weak body language, a hesitancy to speak up, avoiding an interaction, or being indecisive are a few. There might be other elements of fear of failure, of a hesitancy to trust, of some measure of seeking external validation or motivation that can play roles as well. So it's important to recognize some of these self-confidence traps and to take heed at some of these pitfalls that we may face. We also want to stress the importance of why it's understanding of personal confidence that's very important. Entrepreneurs must have some measure of confidence in their own judgment, particularly when things are difficult or when your decisions might be unpopular or different from what others may advise. What we find too is that entrepreneurial opportunity discovery is constrained if there's limited confidence or discomfort at being at odds with the majority. So in summary, self-confidence is a term that we know, we're familiar with it, we've heard of it in various contexts. But we want to take stock and think of it. We want to think of it in the context of that you will assuredly miss opportunities that you don't try, that you may feel that taking the advice of others or going with the mainstream is popular and easy thing to do, but it's going to take some measure of confidence to do things that are innovative, that by definition are fairly unprecedented, and that are challenging and difficult to do. And it's also that measure of confidence that's going to be influential of others and their opinions of you and your venture. And so we want to have a high measure of confidence as it's related to talking to investors, to recruiting prospective partners or co-founders, to bringing other employees on board as well. And so we want you to be mindful of that. And we're going to talk later about the integration of some of these in new ventures.